Dear merciful Father, Lord, we thank you, Lord, for this day you have given us. Father, we ask that you continue, Lord, to be with this county, Lord, be with each and every individual up under my voice, Lord, as we continue, Lord, to work hand in hand to make Marlboro County a better place. Father, help us in our decision, that everything that we do, Lord, to do in your righteousness. We ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
The only thing we have on the agenda is discussion of the budget. Do we have a motion to approve agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? It's unanimous. All right, we will move to Mr. West Park on the operating budget for 2023-24.
Mr. Chair, before Mr. Park starts, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I noticed that he's given us a package that he plans to go through with us, probably.
That's right.
Do you have any idea how long this may take, sir?
That should be a reasonable amount of time. I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so.
My reason is, and I don't know, maybe he's added something new, but I'm hoping that he'll go through it as quickly as he possibly can so we can have our opportunity to do a deep dive in this budget.
Glad to take as long as you like.
No, I'm asking you to shorten your time so we can have time for this.
Certainly will.
Thank you.
Be glad to. All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, council members. We're here tonight to talk about the 23-24 budget. And we have a presentation. PowerPoint presentation is here, and then of course this is the document that you received before, and I do have additional copies of that in case any of you didn't bring your copies tonight. Now we'll start with revenues. I think this is a great place to go. Just give you an idea overall, just looking at revenues, general revenues from taxes represent about 50% of the full budget. Fee and lieu and intergovernmental, when you add those two components together, that's about a quarter. So about 3/4 of the revenue comes from general taxes, fee and lieu, in intergovernmental state. We do have fees for services. We have licenses and permits. We've got miscellaneous revenue, other revenue. We've got funding from the library. And then, of course, we have transfers, and you'll see those as transfers come from economic development, railroad fund, as well as rural fire and EMS. And right now, we're at a point where we need $896,393 to balance the budget as we're presented here. And of course, that could be made up of a combination of use of fund balance as well as property tax increases. If we look, just doing a visual, that's just another way of looking at it in terms of a pie chart. Of course, when we look at
on the revenue, how does that stack up to last year?
last year, it's similar. We're right at our revenues are for the most part flat, and one of the reasons why is because we've had a loss of Mohawk in terms of fee and lieu revenue, which was about $520,000. So the only real increase that we've had is in the intergovernmental revenue. Our other property tax income is not grown the way in terms of when we look at where we are with inflation right now. We're certainly our revenues.
So if Mohawk had not left, we would have
$520,000 more. So we'd really be in a position where we would be where we'd expect to be in terms of the balanced budget. But looking at what allowable tax increases, this is determined by the the state. They effectively allow us to use the consumer price index to make a determination of what amount we could increase our tax on an annual basis. This year is significant, it's 8%. We look at our millage rate history. I think this is kind of an interesting slide. You might want to look at your actual presentation because these numbers are fairly small. But if you look at the county ordinary in 2018, 2019, we were 93.2 mils. In 2020 and 1920, we were 95.2. We did see a reduction in county ordinary in 2021, but we had an increase in EMS. So effectively, that the rate of tax for the county stayed the same. In 2021, 2022, we did a property tax rollback. We actually reduced millage by 3.3 mils. And that is based on the revaluation that took place, and we were able and were required to roll back millage when we have a reevaluation. And of course, the concept is it's a tax equalization. And we look at our current rate of millage, 95.5, which is about the same as where we were 3 years ago. So it's not a lot of difference in terms of actual change in rates. And you can see the other taxing authorities that are listed on this summary as well. But, I don't know if you've got any questions about that. I'll move forward. We've talked about fund balance, and obviously because of the fact that we've seen some significant reductions in vacancies within the county's workforce, we really need to target about 300,000 from reserves. We use that number by the time we get to the end of the year. If all the revenues and all the other expenditures work out, typically we'll have about $300,000 in reduction in actual salaries and benefits because of vacancies that have taken place during the year. We know that inflation is hard to predict, and so we've got to do everything we possibly can to protect our fund balance. The other issue has to do with when we're looking at things like trying to pursue additional grant funding. There's generally a match involved. And that match can be 15 to maybe as much as 50%. Obviously, if you don't have reserves to be able to use as a match or some other source of revenue or principal, then that limits, some of our grant-seeking options. Our target is 5 to 6 months of operating costs, and currently we're at 5.5 months based on this recent audit. Take a look at where we are, and this includes the expenditures that are within the budget at this point in time. Expenditures of $14,565,000, revenues $13,665,000. Obviously, if we had a tax increase of 7.9 mils, that would generate another $515,000 in increased revenue, leaving the deficit at about $385,000.
Mr. Parks, question.
Yes, sir.
Is there going to be anything that's presented tonight that hasn't been presented in another?
Yes.
Because this is okay.
I mean, I'm really trying to give you these slides, but there certainly is some information that is relevant to take a look at the budget request, we kind of reformatted these. As you can see, that the bonus program for sheriff and detention, which that's covered by the federal inmate reimbursement fund. Any increase with SRO officers and costs are covered by the school district. The upgrade of the doors to the detention center is covered by a combination of grant and GO bond, so that's not included in general fund. We do have a request from the Sheriff's Department for an additional lieutenant with benefits that amount to $64,210. We've included 4 law enforcement vehicles, and that, of course, is a combination of the grant, $100,000 grant with RDA, and $80,000 out of pocket. If we consider a cost of living increase, 2% starting in January, that's about $90,000. And I know there's been interest and discussion about compensation. Certainly a lot of other governmental units, whether or not it's city, county, school districts, are actively involved in doing compensation studies at this point in time. I've included $50,000 to do a comp study.
Did we do a compensation study about 2 years ago?
No, we did not. It was internal. It was not, we didn't contract that out. And of course, I think the question is, I mean, if that's of interest to try to continue to do that internally, fine. But if you want to have an external view and be able to kind of communicate with a firm that might have a lot more experience and qualifications actually, and also information. I think one of the challenges there is right now is trying to get actually the info, because you look at the different publications that have been done, you make contacts with the other governmental units, and it's difficult making comparisons with exactly what our staff is doing, or the county staff is doing. I think there's some real value in actually contracting that out. I've not included a minimum base salary to $31,200. The cost of that would be $314,305. Hopefully, being able to look at comp study would be a way that maybe previous strategy would address some of those concerns. We look at those total requests that are included, the 4 requests, that cost is $284,210. That is in the expense number of $14,562,308, which, with a maximum tax increase of 7.9 mils, $513,500, would result in a reserve needed of $382,000. Any questions on this slide?
So the amount requested is in this figure?
It is in that number, yes.
I have a question, Mr. Park. When you brought up millage increase, I was at a school board meeting, and the young lady presenting there from finance, she made it sort of clear that it's been indicated that the council, Marlboro County council members have possibly agreed to a millage increase. She made that comment.
Okay.
And I sat there and I listened to that comment, and I knew I was sitting there shaking my head because that did not come from this council. Now, she may have had a conversation with members of your finance department or whomever, but I just want to set the record straight. When I hear other entities such as school or any other entity talking about what Marlboro County government has recommend, I know that's not true. So for the record, I want Marlboro County School District, we make that decision, and finance or anybody else don't make that decision.
I mean, mean, that's certainly your decision as we
Right.
work through third and final reading, yes. Any other questions about this?
Mr. Park, I'm looking at this information, and I had an opportunity to, kind of brief over and review it. But to be honest, I'm more concerned about this right here.
Okay.
Because this is gonna tell me way more than what this presentation is, because I'm looking at some of the numbers, and I have valid questions about some of the numbers that goes into this 14 million that we're trying to operate from. And if we need to spend some time going through, line by line, so we can make sure that if we are spending, if this money is allocated in the budget already, we're saying $20,000 for professional services. I need to know what has been spent on professional services this year, so I can make an accurate decision if $20,000 needs to be allocated in 23, 24 for a budget item that I don't know if that budget item has been exhausted or there's money left over. There's too many questions and phantom numbers, is what I call them. Phantom numbers in this budget that's going into this 14 million that we honestly don't have an accurate idea of how we're getting this 14
Well, let
million.
me give you an idea. I brought you, these are the general ledgers for the last 2 years. There's all of the postings, and you're certainly welcome to take those. This is for the fiscal year, the 10 months in 2023. This is for the 10 months in 2022. And these are public record. You could take those with you and certainly be glad that, if you want to actually see what has been physically posted to those account numbers, that'll give you the exact details.
But I mean, just if I'm looking at, just on page 1, it says community relations or whatever, that is. 23, that budget item was $20,000, and this proposed budget year is $15,000. How would I know, based looking at that, sir, how would I know that that $20,000 that was allocated in fiscal year 2022, 2023 has been totally exhausted, for us to make an accurate decision about what needs to go into this year's budget, so we can see how we can reduce this number by looking at what this budget right here is saying. Before we talk about millage increases and reserve funding, I need to know what this right here really and truly means instead of just looking at numbers, because some of these numbers haven't changed. They just put $20,000 for this year, $20,000 for that year, $10,000 for this year, $10,000 that year. We don't know what has actually been spent. It's hard to make an accurate decision about that money being allocated towards a 2024 budget if I honestly don't know what we did in 2022 or 23.
Well, one thing that happens in the general fund, we close the books every year in June 30th. And it typically takes 5 to 6 months to actually get a final reporting on that. But
so we chasing our tail.
Whatever funding hasn't been used in the current fiscal year does not carry forward to the next fiscal year. The revenue and expenses close out general fund, and so there's no carry forward of those amounts.
Not necessarily carry forward, but I need to know if we need to continue to put that same line item into that same amount that goes into this 14 million into the next budget year.
Well, I've got the answers for you right here.
Is that what we're looking for, that check receipt where income coming in? Is that giving me dates?
Income expenditures, these are general ledgers.
That's what those
And
ledgers are.
That's the activity that's been posted for all of the county's accounts.
Mr. Chairman, as the board, what we have to do is staff has reviewed these over and over and over and over again. And they submit these to us. They're looking into day-to-day of everything that goes on. So what they submit to us is, I look at some things on the budget and see some up and some down, but they would know every line item of what's up, what's not, what's down You know, so we have to, a part of it has to trust the staff to bring us
Yeah,
those
but they're not
those
voting on the
information.
budget, Jason.
No, they're not voting on the budget, but they do have to make it, they do have to run the day-to-day operations, and, you know, if I look back here as to say, well, you know, we think the $14,500,000, if that's what they present to us to run it, we have to make a conscious decision.
No, I disagree.
Well,
I disagree. We have to do our due diligence in ensuring that number
I'm
is as
speaking-
accurate
I'm
as it can be,
speaking-
but you're speaking nonsense.
I'm speaking, I have the floor. And so, so we have to make an actual, we have to vote. I mean, the only thing is, if you don't agree with it, we vote it down or vote in favor of it. That's how we do it. But staff has come to us with a proposal, and that's the way, you know, it's come to us. So we want to know every line by line, how many paper clips it bought, how much this costs and that costs. That's what that is over there. I mean, we don't look at a day-to-day check ledger to look at a $14 million budget when we don't know the in-depth of all the professional services, all the, you know, that's what staff does on a day-to-day basis.
Not when we have contracted staff, not when we don't have full-time staff doing these things, and that's what our job is. Our job is to make it, you know, the type of attitude that we have taken over the historical nature of this county has been a detriment to my tax dollars, my increase in tax, my lack, and if we're not gonna really and truly engage this process like we're supposed to, then why are we here?
Well, these are the figures right there. That's what each line item is made out of, and that's more paperwork than.
But what I'm saying is, I need to know if I'm gonna make an accurate, intelligent decision on a budget item. If we spending $40,000 of professional services for one line item, and we got $40,000 in this proposed budget, I need to know if we actually need that $40,000 in the next budget, so it can look at that accurate 14 million and hopefully reduce it to the point where if we have to do millages, then we made an intelligent decision on raising people's taxes, not because somebody presented us something, because we was too lazy to really go through it. And then we just did it just because they presented it. These are people's tax dollars that we're talking about increasing. This is reserve money we're talking about increasing. I don't think just because we don't want to do our job, we should push it off on the people to pay more if we can do our due diligence and go through this and ensure. Let's say we go through this right here and that's a $200,000 that's being saved. That we looked at these line items and $200,000 being saved. That means that's 2 or 3 meals that we don't have to go up because we did our jobs.
Well, we've got all the numbers are right there, and they're charged off to each one of those accounts. You can actually go see what that $40,000.
Well, that's what we need to be spending time doing.
And Mr. Chair, if I can have the floor too, that was one of the reasons I asked for the question. I realize, and I do respect that we have members of finance and our department doing that, but I was more concerned because I have spent several hours, several days looking at some things, because not that, this is not my first time doing a budget, just like any of the rest of you. But I do say I respect what our employees have done for us, but I do have some legitimate concerns. When I told you I highlighted this, I highlighted. If the answer's there, now you're telling me tonight I hadn't even had a chance to look at that.
Well,
none of us.
Is that going to be available to us?
So, that's fine, but the question I have.
It's on the website too, but that's a lot of printing.
I know.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Councilman Lawson has been asking for this information for 2 months.
2 months.
2 months, and now
Because
it's
I was
sitting
gonna
over
put
there
it on
on
the
that
floor
desk.
for a vote.
You know what I mean? Now you all want to say, well, if you want it, there it is. But
Right.
that's not the way it works, Mr. Council, Mr. Chairman. We have a responsibility to the citizens of this county before we raise 1 penny in taxes to go over this and budget. Do a budget. See if we need 10,000 here, or we can save 5,000 there, or 40,000 there. That's our responsibility.
Well,
Not just to take some presentation and say, well, let's do it.
We got the figures there. I'm sorry you didn't get them when you asked for them. But I understand. I mean, it took like 5 months to get these figures back from last year. I mean,
Mr. Chairman, may I, if we don't, if you tried to say we're gonna go in here and cut $200,000, and next year if you said, we're gonna do this, and staff has looked at it, and they say, this is a recommendation, what it's gonna take to run the county for next year, if that's what it's gonna take, and we cut $200,000 out of it, and if we don't raise it, you're still gonna come up with $200,000 out of reserve, that's gonna make your reserve less than what it's asked for.
No, that's not what we're saying. I'm saying that there's a line item that says $40,000 for 22-23, and that same line item has $40,000 for 23-24. What if we looked and see that we only spent 25 in that line item, and that's $15,000 that can be taken out of that budget? What if we go through these line items and we go through and we find $5,000 or $6,000 in each one of these line items that would save the citizen $200,000 or $300,000? Then that's 4 or 5 meals that we've saved in raising taxes to your mom who's on a fixed income, as you eloquently told me before.
I've said that all the time, she is on a fixed income.
Exactly. So if we can save her by doing our job, if we can save the tax citizens money by doing our job, why don't we take the opportunity to do it?
Then we are doing our job.
No, we're not. We're not.
The 10 months in each one of those things, are all those numbers comparable with each year?
Yeah.
To the penny, just about probably. And everything that we do is audited by our audit team.
That's correct.
And we get a perfect rating by the audit team. Okay, that's all I have.
If I know what to present to an audit team, I will get a perfect audit rating every single time myself too. This is by no means no hits against Mr. Parks. No, we have to do our job, because too often we have not done our job, and our citizens have suffered because we haven't done our job. And because it's tough, because it takes time, because we have to get outside of our comfort zone, because we have to do things that we haven't done before, it's our job to make sure that we're going through this budget and sure we make an intelligent, accurate decision about raising people's taxes, about, not allocating this money like it's supposed to. Now, I'm sorry if this is uncomfortable for you all. I'm sorry if y'all just want to go through a presentation and go on out, fly on out the door without doing your job. But I'm very, very concerned. Very, very concerned that we're not taking our time to make sure that if this line item says $40,000, doggone it, we spent $40,000 in 20 and 22 and 23 to make sure that this $40,000 is an accurate picture of what we need. We might need 50 in that line item instead of 40. But if we don't go through and make sure that we've done our due diligence to know that what's in those numbers, we're not doing nobody this, sir. We're just sitting up here making decisions that are not in the benefit of our county. Simple as that.
How is that set up? Is that, do we have 8 copies of?
No, that's.
I mean, that's the whole thing. That's right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be best.
That's
It would be
on the
best.
website. If you want to print your own copy, that's fine.
And it would be best if we had, maybe as individuals could come in here and go through each item. I mean, I would be able to do that. I could find out that, account 5599, which is contracted services, and find every bill in there. And I will make every effort,
Mr. Chairman.
everything in my ability to do that myself.
Let me ask you a question. Out of the, we voted to buy 2 signs at $40,000 a piece, and we bought 1 sign. Where's the other $40,000?
Can you answer that? I don't.
I would just like to know, where's the other $40,000, and if that $40,000 has not been exhausted, then will we roll that into this budget? And have it been subtracted from have it been subtracted because it's allocated?
It's under economic development. If you look in the package, it shows where 1 sign was bought and there's still.
I want to know, those are the type things that you have to go through and look, because that's $40,000 that's going into this year now.
Mr. Parker, do you have another copy of that?
I can no longer buy a sign.
I do. We've got extra.
I can no longer buy a sign with that $40,000. It has to be re-voted on because it doesn't automatically go over to the next budget.
I got you. I hear you.
So that's money. I'm sorry, that's money, and it's a lot of money.
I'm just saying, just too many phantom numbers. And I've been through budget processes before, and I understand throwing numbers in there, the thing. But if we're gonna really and truly do this process right, we honestly have to know what was being spent in 2022, 2023, to at least have a accurate decision on what we're talking about in 23, 24. I wish y'all had it.
There's 35,000 available, proposed for 2023, 2024. So
Right,
it has-
35,000, right, yeah. We're, you know,
It's in economic development, it's,
so we won't spend it on a sign this year, so that automatically goes into this budget, right?
well, the 35,000 is in the 23-24 year, and of course, that's not general fund. That is out of the Economic Development Fund, Fund 38. Okay, let me go to the next slide.
So those are still funds that are available that we don't have to replace, or we will have to replace, or we will have to vote on.
It's still sitting over there for electronic sign in the proposed budget for next year. So approving the 2023, 2024 budget, that money is still there for the electronic sign. It's a designated account for, you know, that money is still there every year. Well, it ain't general fund, so it says on here 04752 electronic sign, 64,000, 2022, 2023, and then 35,000 for 23, 24 proposed.
You know, if every line item like that, we should know.
But there is a line item.
Right.
Can we get to this?
Looking at general fund expenditures, you have salaries and benefits, that makes up the lion's share of the general fund expenditures at 69%. Materials and supplies, 793.07, about 5%. Purchase services, that's a significant number, 3,363,669, is about 23%. Capital outlay and lease payments, $436,880. That's about 3%.
When you say purchases services, could you explain to the rest of council what all that
Like,
is?
for example, utilities, that's a pretty good example of purchase services. Things like repair and maintenance type of services.
Fuel, all, everything is,
Yeah, any of the contracted services that we engage, whether or not it's for, some type of, well, it could be for computer or internet services, all of the, the different subscription-based services are all part of purchase services.
Mr. Chair, I want to address, let's say, salaries and benefit. I do appreciate that y'all finally did give us this copy of the salaries. I do appreciate that. We got that information. But when I looked at this information, I noticed that out of these salaries, 38 of them were $50,000 and above, and that's public information. But the question I have is, of those 36 salaries, the range from 52,000 all the way up to 100,000. That's not including the two people who no longer are with us, our administrator and our public works. But question I have then is, do you have any option on the table? I noticed that you said you were recommending a 2% increase in salaries.
Cost of living.
Do you have any other options on the table for us?
No.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I want to have y'all look at this for an option, because I don't know what anyone else has done. I have spent time looking at these salaries, and I'm just using those salaries that ranges from that. Just adding those salaries alone, those 36 salaries, we're total $406,917.11. When we looked at those salaries, I didn't include two salaries on there, didn't include consultant pay if possible, if it's a 50-week or if it's going to be a 40-week. I didn't include those. But if we propose, we've got from the finance department proposing a 2% increase. If we take a 2% increase for each one of these people, but just those salaries alone, we're talking about $48,138.34. That's just for 36 people. However, on this sheet, there's a dot that has 28 people that do not make $30,000 or more. When I pull those people's salary, ranging from $26,000 maybe to $29,000, and I looked at that and I did an average range. If we take those 28 people and the middle range will be $27,000. That total for those people will be $750,000 times 2% will make a $15,120. If we do 36 people, which we don't have thus far because I hope that's everybody in the county, it will be $19,000, close to $20,000. My problem with all of this is, in looking at these salaries, I noticed that on the bottom of each one in each department, clerks have been here since 1987. People have been here for a long time. The clerks, people in maintenance, people in the lower type positions have had the lowest salaries. And I don't know why that hadn't changed. I can't, Mr. Parks, you wasn't even here all these years either, so I can't say that wasn't suggested. But county council members, I think we need to look at another option as far as talking about that 2% wage increase across the board. If we use this proposed option, it'll narrow that gap for people who are making money by giving the people who are less than $30,000 an overall 4% increase. People who are $30,000 to $40,000 by looking at them getting a 3% increase. Persons $40,001 to $49,999, a 2% increase, and a 1% increase across the board for anybody 50,000 and above. Now those are some examples. Now if I make $65,000, that's $650 for me for 1%. But if I make just less than $30,000, I make $28,000. A 4% will give me a $1,120 increase. I think we need to look at having some other option instead of that just 2% across the board. This will be something that the council, as all of us, have to consider and vote on, but we weren't given any other type options that will overall help everyone. I know I proposed $15 an hour across the board to bring someone up, but the better benefit for those people, because here I was thinking that everybody in these offices work 8 hours a day. They actually work 7.5 hours a day because they have an hour lunch break. I'm thankful that they are able to get their lunch break. I do. I appreciate that. But in all fairness, they're getting paid 37.5 hours a week. I don't want to have people not being paid for their hours, but I don't want people to be being paid 40 hours and they only working 37 hours either. But if we do have a across the board increase for someone, we will finally close that gap, and people who have been on the bottom can finally have an opportunity to earn some funds. Now, this is new for y'all to look at because I've been sitting for 2 weeks going over the figures. That's why my sheet here is so, when I told you I had 52 questions, I do that because that's me. That's nobody else, no reflection on anyone else. But I want to find a way that we can bring the people who are on the bottom up to what we call a livable wage, something that they can be proud of. And from that point on, if next year we want to readjust and give everybody 2% or go step down, that's fine. But it'll alleviate that, bringing everybody up to $15 an hour, because some of the people who are on our list are part-time. And there's a lot of part-time people on our list. I don't think we need to do consultants increase. I think part-time people should be people such as those bailiffs. I find out their salaries is just $10 an hour. Some people's landfill, $10.20, and they work. So those are part-time type employees. I realize we have a lot with EMS, and they make a lot of overtime. And you have a lot of part-times, and have the numbers on that. You have at least 18 of those people who are part-time and 28 who are full-time. So those are kinds of things that I want to look at. I want the regular people in this county to feel good that we're looking at a way to help them and benefit them. This is just a proposal that I put together. You haven't had a chance to look at it and study it like I have. The finance director doesn't have it, but I wanted y'all to at least have a consideration that we look at that.
Mr. Chairman, in deference to Ms. Lawson, I don't think we can begin to discriminate on employees of the county just because someone makes a higher salary. You know, I've been involved with cost of living for the last 35 years at the mill. Been involved with the federal government side too when I worked with USDA. We do a cost of living, it's across the board for everybody. You cannot discriminate against people because they make a certain salary, do a different type job. It's always 2%, you know, the paper mill is 1.3, 1.7, 2.75, it varies. But the cost of living is for every single employee, whether you're one of our clerical staff at the admin building or one of the technicians or the managers at work. And I've never heard of discriminating with a cost of living raise. It's generally across the board. I mean, everybody's living in the same environment. And that's just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I've talked to other counties, and
Me
some
too.
counties
I just wanted
employ
to say that.
this calculation. Some counties do employ these type of strategic initiatives
do.
to make sure that there's some parity that comes up. And I thank Ms. Lawson for, going through the rigorous work of doing this information right here. This is not, anybody tell her to do it, but, honestly, this is what it's take. This council government position is not just a one Tuesday out of a month position that we, kind of been accustomed to it being. It takes some work outside of it to ensure that we're trying our best. Nobody's going to be perfect, and we're going to make mistakes all along the way. But I honestly say the way that we've engaged these government elected positions have not been to the benefit of our citizens in our county, and the lack of growth in our county is really telling. Is really telling. If we can say now that because Mohawk hasn't Mohawk left, then we're at the same position, that we would have been had the sheriff department and the detention center hadn't increased, their workforce. I would have hated to have seen it if it's been a consistent employee across the board. Mr. Parks, I see your body language, I see your facial expression. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know you would rather be some other place else, but this is things that affect our citizens. So I'm sorry if we're boring you. I'm sorry if we're wasting your time. I'm sorry if that, because that's the energy and everything I'm seeing for you, that we're wasting your time. But we don't mean to waste your time. We're just trying to do the best for our citizens to make sure that we're going to approve a budget, that we're intelligent and educated, and ensuring that if somebody come up here and say, I can't pay that extra $15, $20 that's been added, I can look them in their face and say, we did our very, very best to ensure that we won't have to raise millage and raise taxes because it's going to affect the bottom line. So I apologize that we're boring you, and I apologize if this is beneath you and this is a waste of your time.
It's not. I'm trying to get through a presentation here, and
But we've seen this information.
No, you haven't seen any information. So these are new slides, and put in a fair amount of effort to bring something to you.
I defer to you then.
So anyway, let me go forward. This is just kind of a pie chart to look overall at just how our expenses are formulated. We look at salaries and benefits. We've done a little analysis here. You can see salaries make up of the total salary and benefits, make up about 72%. Of course, the county pays retirement as well as FICA and Medicare tax. That cost is about 15%. And then, of course, health insurance, which is another item that we saw a significant increase. And of course, one of the things fortunate, the increase only takes place in January, but we still have half a year of increase to deal with. And saw something about this, and the number was 37% increase. So, one of the issues we're dealing with as well, I mean, we've had significant inflation over the last couple of years, and that is driving our cost up. Just looking at another chart with salary and benefits. You look at expenditures by department, and what I did is I pulled out those departments that were about $190,000 or more, and you can see the listing of the amounts. off. But this is what makes up the total. We look at a chart. Here's a chart of how those, this is my chart in terms of what those departments make up as part of the overall. Talk a little bit about some of our special purpose funds. We do have a rural fire fund. Unfortunately, we've got separate millage that pays for rural fire. Solid waste, we have separate fees that are, of course, those are collected through our property tax notices. EMS, very important service, particularly without a hospital here. Separate millage, there's foundation support, and of course billing revenue. All of these funds are self-balancing. Look at other funds. We've got railroad. It's a significant transfer to general fund. We have family court, victims advocate, forfeited land commission, debt service. This is how we pay for capital expenditures. We have low option sales tax rollback, and we're fortunate that we're able to roll back about 70% of the, this is the source of funds that we use to roll back property taxes. We have family court incentive fund, we have economic development, we have general obligation bond proceeds, and of course you approved financing this past year, and we're able to acquire things in the current year that we're in as well as the next year. And of course we've got the federal inmate reimbursement fund. We look at other funds continue. These are recreation projects. We've got the projects that are funded by the American Rescue Plan, and that of course includes the Dalton Recreation Complex for operations and capital, the Broad Street Rest Stop. We have projects that are funded by fund balance that you would reserve. We set aside $500,000 to address city and town image concerns, and of course that's $225,000 going out to the towns of Clio, McCall, and Buena. That would aid them in doing some type of project if they were doing a CDBG grant of $500,000. That 15% match would then be covered by this source. And then of course we've got recreation projects that are funded by the legislative delegation, and that included the Lake Paul Wallace Boardwalk, splash pad, as well as other projects to be determined. And this is just another, you've seen this slide before. Lastly, we've got special funds, we've got various grants, we've got emergency preparedness, we've got emergency 911, which that's paid through phone services. We've got CMRS, which is we receive funding through the state treasurer's office. We do have a local accommodations tax, and this is designed to capture funding from tourists that are coming and staying here. We charge an additional 3% sales tax on accommodations. And then lastly, we've got hospitality tax, that's a prepared food and beverage. It's a 2% tax in the unincorporated areas and 1% tax in the incorporated areas that haven't already implemented a hospitality tax.
May I ask a question then? The city has a hospitality tax.
That's correct.
Also of 2%. So what's Marlboro County?
Ours
What's the county?
is 2% in the unincorporated areas, but no tax in the city of Evansville.
So unincorporated area, I'm out there on that bypass with my food truck, okay?
Wherever is outside of the
No,
city limits.
right. So there's a 2% hospitality tax for the county for that particular business being there.
Yes, ma'am.
When did we have this in place?
This has been about a year and a half now.
Year and a half? Now, how is that money collected?
We send out booklets, we make contacts with vendors, and then they file a monthly sales tax return and submit payment to the county for the hospitality tax.
Now, are we getting any funds from that?
We are, yeah.
That's pretty much on the honor system, man.
Well, I mean, there is self-reporting, obviously. They're using, I'm sure, the same reporting that they're doing to the South Carolina Department of Revenue. So if they're fully reporting to revenue, then we're getting that same level of sales numbers. So. Okay. And I don't know, questions and discussions. I mean, I know we're going to be, and I'm glad to go through this next document. And then, of course, we know we've got preparations for third reading. So obviously, we've got to come to some consensus in terms of what items that are included in the budget that some of those items that you've got some alternatives to, or, of course, we do need to talk about whatever we're going to do to balance the budget in order to preserve our fund balance.
What's the maximum amount with the millage?
Maximum amount is 7.9 mils.
Times 65,000.
Times 65,000, that's 532,000.
What does that look like for tax increase? How many dollars?
How many dollars? It depends on valuation. So, for example, if you've got, let's just call it 8 mils. If you've got a $100,000 house, principal residence, that's a 4% assessment ratio. So that's $4,000 times 0.008. So, that's probably $32.
Super.
On a $100,000 house.
100,000 residents. Now, other properties are taxed at different rates. More common, vehicles are taxed at a 6% rate. Commercial and second residents are at a 6%. And now even the manufacturing and industrial is at 6%. Well, we've got some basically reimbursements in here for the difference between the 10.5% assessment ratio and the 6%. The state had implemented that in this past year.
How does that work with land? Let's say I'm a farmer with
Well,
200 acres of land based on that.
It depends on if you've got what's termed to be agricultural use. And agricultural use ends up being a very reasonable assessment. It's greatly discounted in comparison to if it was just not had use.
Okay. So even if we raise the mills all the way up to the maximum, we're still at a 500,000?
We're still, we're about $380,000. Yeah.
And it really does, it makes up for the money we lost from Mohawk, really.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in these numbers that can be altered to bring that 14 million down. There's nothing, if you.
I think we've done a lot of work in evaluating the request, and we've done everything we could possibly do to present a recommendation that would be as reasonable as possible. And we've also looked at our revenues to make certain that we've taken into account all our revenues and to be able to fully utilize those. So, I feel as if the budget document that you're looking at is really accurate.
So give me an idea on what professional service is. Because
That's
I'm
what
saying
I want to
professional,
know.
and that's
Right.
about $300,000-$400,000 in professional service money that really can't be for almost anything. What does that really entail?
Let me give you an idea of what some of our expensive professional services are. Like, for example, we have QS1. That is, and they aid us with, things like our property tax collection. It's very expensive software, it's expensive support. We need that. I mean, I don't think there's another alternative. And so you'll see like, for example, in the treasurer's office.
I see that.
There's some pretty significant money that's spent there. We also have that same type of expense in the auditor's office for billing. We have a lot of expense in the tax assessor's office because of course, they're using those professional services to be able to go out and do all these surveys and obviously maintain that information. So I think information technology, information services make up a pretty good portion.
Let's say look at the coroner. Coroner office has $30,000 for professional services in last year's budget, and $30,000. What does that professional services include in the coroner's office?
In the coroner's office, I'd probably have to pull that, and I'd probably have to look at that. I'd be glad to, any questions that you have that I can't answer tonight, I'll be glad to.
Yeah. And so, for me, those little things that I
Those are
think,
the little
if we can
things.
save some money, from them, phantom item that, looks good, but if we can save $10,000 from here, that reduces the amount of millage, that we need. Even if we save $100,000 out of that fund, that's 2 meals almost that we've saved the taxpayers for us just combing through and shaving off a little bit of what's being customary, especially if we don't know if that customary is actually needed in truth and fidelity.
Those are the kinds of concerns I have, sir. That's what I have highlighted. I wanted a better understanding of those professional services and contract service. A lot of budgets have contract service in it, and I was concerned about that. But like, for example, you had a budget item in 5,600. Last year you had $95,000 there. Now this year you're saying you're dropping to $5,000. That's a $90,000 decrease.
In which,
Finance.
right. That basically was my contract services. What my service is budget is if you're going to hire a finance officer.
So what is your role
salary.
there?
What's that?
So what is your role? Are you the finance director or are you a consultant?
Well, I'm guessing I'm contract finance.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm going to have to be excused. I have to go to work at 7:15. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
But if anything that you can find in those line items that can be shaved and things, I just don't want us to miss an opportunity where we can save the taxpayers, $1 or $2, for us just combing through and ensuring that if we, put in $30,000 in professional service, we for sure that $35,000 is needed and is going to be used in the manner that it is allocated for.
And I agree with you, Dr. Jones. $32 for some people at the beginning of the year that's on a fixed income that can't make it on what they get now. $32 is that much more. So, I mean, I agree 100%, And I looked through the budget that he gets. Some of them's up, some of them's down, some of them's down, for $800. I mean, and $800 over time, times 100 makes a lot of money, but, you know, I've looked and, you know, and, of all of them, and there are some up, some down, and, you know, and, we do have to trust staff. I've looked through the things, and, you know, and some of them's down to $40 or $70. So whenever I look at that, I think that somebody has gone through pretty intense, but, you know, it ain't, I always say it's worth checking one more time kind of thing. I know y'all are, staff is not as much as we've had in the past, but,
And let me mention, it's not finance preparing this budget necessarily. It's departments that are making requests. We evaluate those requests with finance and administration, and then we come to consensus on what seems to make sense in terms of what we're expecting their costs to be. And sometimes we have understanding that you know, maybe the departments have overlooked. We're saying, okay, look, you just bought this, hey, there's a service contract, there's this, there's that. Have you taken that into consideration? And they might say, no, I didn't think about that. We were just looking at last year. And so, anyway.
Just like and what other people point out, I look at the bottom line, like in recreation, we went from 451,000 to 534,000. And I don't understand, you know, with the uniforms in recreation, you know, uniform, they wanted from 20,000 of this year to 65,000 for next year.
I think what's happening, Councilman Woods, is the county is purchasing uniforms for every team in every sport.
and more players.
So basketball, if you have 15 teams, the county has purchased uniform for all of those 15 teams. For baseball, so I think that's why that number has ballooned to that, what you're looking at.
And also,
What channel- what page is that?
We understand, I mean,
Sorry.
there's been an increase in participation, so that's how we're
Okay.
anticipating this cost.
Because I said a lot of them, you know, we got $2,000 or $3,000 increase, did you drop off, which is the norm, you know, we expect $2,000 to $3,000 increase, but when you start jumping up
40 to
50,
50,
60,000,
90,000.
that's what the, you know, the
That's a
flag
big-
comes up, but
right.
I understand a little bit more now.
And one thing just to keep in mind, I mean, if you look at it, just say a $15 million budget, and we've had an 8% inflation rate, multiply 15,000 times 8%, and you come up with, I mean, 15 million by 8%, you come up with $1.2 million. So some of the things, you know, just like, for example, with, in the budget, you'll see increases on fuel consumption, because we really expect that, you know, the gasoline and diesel is gonna be more expensive than what we had initially planned in the prior year. So we've got some things like that that are just a result of inflation.
One of the things that, well, it probably too late to bring it up now because of the fact that the economic development, person and the administrator was saying the one and the same. But here we had, friends benefit, has friends benefit.
Still have that.
He have friends benefit on both jobs. When we hired, the administrator to do both, the administrator and economic development, the purpose of him have a dual role is you don't have one, friend, you know, friends. And here we got it, in 2022 and 2023, he would have friend benefits on both sides.
But if
And that's the expectation that it'll be two different individuals.
With that, I'll say, it's too late to say that now, because last year he shouldn't have got, it shouldn't have been even in the, 2022, 2023, he shouldn't have even been there. Should have been a
Well, I
blank.
think also, there may be a staff member that was budgeted in there as well, and
That's one time we were looking at our project developer, also economic development, and that was expected for last year.
So there was no real money spent in economic development, but
Except for, we also like part of the salary, woman's salary would have to come out of economic development, also credited to them for economic development and also credited to the administrative clerk and
I mean, I would ask, those little miscellaneous things that's in the budget, I would just ask you to take another, you know, hard look You know, those things that are top tier, you know, I'm not too concerned with, because I know you have, it's those little miscellaneous things that I think really could be tweaked a little bit to shave off at least $200,000 off, you know, what's being allocated in that 14 million. Because some of those things, you know, I can almost bet that, you know, people are not utilizing every single dime of that money that could be deferred back into, you know, to lower the cost for the average taxpayers who's going to be paying into, you know, this system. We can reduce that meal by 2. I think that'd be a great feat, knowing that we've lost Mohawk, knowing that's $500,000 that, you know, we lost, knowing that there's you know, increase in positions and all of those things, inflation. You know, we can save 1 or 2 meals. I think that would be a good feat for us coming in and knowing what we're up against with this budget.
If we look at, hypothetically, we know we can't go up to 7.9. Let's round up to 8% meal increase. If, like Dr. Johnson and I know Mr. Blackman, he's a big non-tax man. If we can drop it, if we just run the numbers at 6% increase, how much? Let's look at that 6%. That's 2% that Dr. Johnson is requesting.
And basically,
And what would the general? I know the general fund would go up a little bit more, but how much more?
One thing that would happen is, just call it 8 mils.
Yeah.
And that's just 8%. So 6 mils would be 6%. So saving 2 mils would save about $130,000 in tax millage within this budget. So if you feel like maybe the target is around 6 mils,
Right.
then, you know,
Let us look at the numbers.
Let's say 5 meals. Let's say 5 meals. Let's say 5 meals and see what we. And if we can't, then we can't. But let's target 5 meals and see what we can do in this budget, and maybe, you know, bring that $190,000 or whatever the case may be, where we can at least look our people in the face and say, look, man, we did all we could.
Yeah.
I do see this thing where the planning and loan officer last meeting said that the training for that position was only, you know, once, that's all it is. But yet we have $9,600 in here, you know, set aside for training. For planning and zoning, you know, that's crazy when the people haven't been trained in 10 years that's been on that board, you know. So we can shave that off. We can look through this line by line and shave stuff off.
Do you know what was categorized to that? That might be coming back up again?
I'm certain, for example, that is probably training for the board.
Yeah.
And,
Training. Yeah.
No, for the zoning.
For the planning and zoning. Yeah, he said last week that.
we're actually on a.
Yeah, he said last week that the only requirement was to only train once, and that's the only training that they receive. Now, the city receives a lot more training, you know, they do it every year. But we have not done that, and if we're not gonna do that, and we're making one training, that's
Well, I believe he was talking about for the board.
Well, this is the same thing.
But the staff, like,
The staff, he's
Chris
doing
could-
this.
Go back and double check on that, but most of the time that planning travel meals depends on when I know they have new certifications that they go through that's online. You have to pay the cost for that.
Who was,
They may not actually go and physically stay somewhere, but the online course costs them. And as I said, we could double check on the exact cost on it, but.
what kind of staff does he have?
It is for planning and zoning, it is for.
There's 4 employees in planning and zoning, and they're trained every year?
Sometimes they do. When I say sometimes they do, if they need an extra certification, then they may have hours that they have to get. Then I know they hire someone new, so that person will definitely have to obtain their initial certification and then continue to be certified.
So Ms. Sumter, I heard you say they have 4, so has someone else been added on this salary sheet?
I'm saying for
For transportation and going?
Yes, ma'am.
I said it should be 4 people.
I see 3 on this sheet.
You see Mr. Henderson?
Nope.
He's the new person.
Nope.
Okay.
See, that's why I said some of these salaries not on this sheet.
So we look through, what's not gonna be included in the budget?
One question is.
Yeah, what's not, you know, when, Mr. Parks had,
You know, in sheriff close years, I mean, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, but here's, you know, this is, I understand. Yeah, if you just looked at what's amount included in that, I mean, that takes, if, 200, I mean, with no,
That's 4 meals off right
I mean,
there.
I'm just saying, I mean, that's 284 from what we have in amount, ain't that right? Yeah, amount included, that's 284, 210, so if you took, I mean, just swap that, that's 4 meals, with there would be nothing to get, I mean, you know, and, I understand there's vehicles in here and other things, I mean, so, if your compensation study wait 1 year,
Yes.
that's a meal.
I think we can internally engage that.
That's just,
What's the consensus? Because that
yeah, I think,
We can, if I have to come and get on the phone myself with a pencil, I do the compensation study, I ride around to every county around here and save $50,000.
But I will tell you personally, because we did work hard on that compensation study that we did in-house, and it did involve a lot of calling to a lot of emails to your surrounding counties and to your surrounding, the out-of-state cities, also, you know, the Rockingham area to where people are driving to, so. We did try to make that as sterile as possible.
Let me see, so,
Yeah, we agreed for vehicle, new vehicles for EMS. Did we agree on that yet?
I think the,
That's
trust,
coming out of the general obligation.
Yeah, that's a
bond.
trust.
That was
That's what they-
agreed upon.
That's pretty much-
When we, probably been a year ago.
I just noticed it's increased to $45,000 more.
so for the sheriff, we're looking for the new lieutenant
that's a meal.
and the, law enforcement vehicles. And the cost of living, we X'd out the, so in regards to the cost of living, are we gonna kind of take a look at what Ms. Lawson proposed?
We can allocate a certain dollar amount, and then you all can make a decision how to basically distribute that.
Okay, if you would, Mr. Park, take a look at that to
Please
see
do.
if that's feasible. You know, if that will come out less than that $90,000 that, you know, giving everybody that
And
across the
let me-
board.
Let me mention the 90,000 does include the actual compensation as well as the fringe benefits.
Okay.
So that would be retirement and your FICA taxes. That would be included.
We can add back, but maybe just see what 1% would do. I mean, I know that'd be 45,000, but,
But then you never would bring the people who are on the bottom to a comfortable
well, yeah, but
rate.
he was asking for a dollar figure.
Right.
And you could play with that figure.
I said, look at that 9, they play with these right here and see if it comes out at least, you know, have a look at it, because I think it is, you know, important for us to look at the lower people who probably doing a lot of the work. You know, those sanitation workers, they don't make a lot of money, but you let them miss 2 or 3 days and watch how backed up your trash be. So if you would, Mr. Park, take a look at, you know, what Ms. Lawson proposed and give us some information on what we can do with it.
And I just a question, is there any foundation out that we might, I know you talked about a grant for the $100,000 of the sheriff's department's, vehicles. Would there be a foundation or anything that may contribute to the other 80 and try to get that as a,
I can ask, I don't mind asking.
no, I mean, we just, I mean, whenever we try to look and cut every little bit.
I can tell you, as of Friday, we got another $25,000 grant that you agreed to. It was a $90,000. We applied, I think, for $115,000 maybe for overtime. If you remember, we talked about the
Yeah.
overtime grant. We were awarded as of Friday. They had a couple of, it's not on here yet, but it's we've been awarded $25,000 out of that. So that will reduce, that will be helpful in some ways.
So
There's a possibility, a very strong possibility that we may get some additional funding coming in within the next couple of months. My interest, obviously, is, for me, we try to reduce as much as we possibly can. We've cut back on overtime. We put 100, but we actually know it's probably going to be much less than 100,000 that we actually put in. From 120, we're down to probably about 90,000. With that 25, we're down to about $65,000 in overtime, as opposed to 130% expansion. So we're talking almost half overtime, I think that half, because of a system and the way we change things. I know we can do that. We needed 8, we asked for 4 cars, there's a difference there. We are looking at some more funding and some more stuff that's going to be coming in. There's some grants we didn't apply for that I've got a phone call saying we can apply for next year that will help on our contractual, on our contracts. It's a $30,000 amount this coming year. I think we'll be able to take care of that again next year, maybe this week, maybe if I have to get all the way through it. So there's just some things that I need to do, and I can't do it until after June.
Thank you for having that, because that makes sense, and I like you said y'all cut down on, you tried to cut down a lot of overtime.
Oh, man, we cut out overtime.
Thank you. And that's why I say with EMS, they had last year over $359,000 of overtime, plus this $1 million salary that they have. But they have a lot of part-time employees. We don't know how many hours they work for part-time, but there's, somebody need to pull it. I heard Mr. Mullen say, he's still our administrator. Well, that's a booger. Well, we will need to cut that little slice in half, because there's a lot in EMS. I do appreciate them, but there's a lot of overtime in EMS. There's a lot of overtime in EMS. And I'm not knocking them.
I don't mean to cut you off there. There was a lot of sleepless nights. EMS is a thing across the nation. There's a shortage.
Okay.
There's a shortage, and it's a just as the sheriff, they have to meet him, and he has to meet them there a lot of time. I mean, anything with public safety right now is it's taxing, it's tough, there's a lot of overtime in it. I mean, as the sheriff said, he's trying to cut it, and I think some of it's mandatory overtime is the way they work on a shift. And so, but like I said, and I know that's a thing, and just as the sheriff, we want to do everything we can for him, and I think you want to try to keep as much as you can for EMS, just because they're hard to come by. There's a national shortage of EMTs and paramedics, and we've done a compensation increase. What happens is this one to give 50 cents more, and then we had to come back and give 50 cents more, because they'll pull our EMTs and paramedics, and we didn't have anybody to cover. So I think last year, or I think a budget amendment last year, if I'm not mistaken, was it last year, to give a little more, just to be able to get some to be able to compete, to be able to get them back over here. So it's a game, but not a game, but I mean,
it's a game.
It's a game. I mean, then you work for the money. So I understand your concern, and it's my concern too. Is we said $32 is $32 to people that don't have it, and and that is a lot. I just know that EMS, if you have a vacancy, we have to cover when that 911 call comes in. Same way as the sheriff. You have to go, and they have to go,
and fire department.
And fire department, and you have to go, because if I need them, I want all 3 of them to come to me when they come. So that's the
Exactly, because I know one thing about emergency services, you never know when you're gonna need them. That's what I call emergency. Because when 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody chest hurting, and you gotta call somebody, you just say, we got 2 people off today because we're trying to save money. That's something that, you can't put a wrap on that. I understand that, with the overtime, we can't, because you gotta be on duty. But anyway, if we can do the magic with your magic pencil with that 5% and see where we at, general fund will have to go up a little bit after you don't shave the corn off. You shut the corn and get it back down where we can do something. Cause like I say, we don't mind. We always talk about raising taxes. What hurt raising taxes is not the tax raises if you can afford to pay it. If those who can't afford it, that's what hurts. You know, I don't mind eating steak, but it hurt me when I can eat steak when I can't pay for it. That what hurts. So same thing when paying taxes. You know, we don't definitely taxes like everybody said that gonna happen. But if we can be in a position where it won't hurt as much.
Correct.
But it's gonna hurt. It's always gonna hurt. They know every year we do this every year, so it's gonna hurt every year. We just don't try to just take a little bit of sting out.
Mr. Park, we gave you a head start. That $50,000 that we started that compensation study. So we already almost around the corner with 1 meal. You know, if we can get those other 2 meals, I think, you know, our citizens will be, they still might be a little hot, but they'll be less hot if they know that we've done, you know, our very, very best to not raise the meals to the highest degree if we could help it. That's my spiel for it. I ain't gonna say nothing else.
Mr. Park, I just noticed in Public Works, there's only $25,000 allocated for crush and run. And this is one thing that the people in my area talked about. Can't even.
It's a great, it's really a great service. And one of the issues is with Mr. Carrigo having left, I think there's some question as far as what that relationship is going to be between the County Transportation Commission and the county in terms of being able to provide funding. So I think that's somewhat of an unknown at this point in time. I think it's, we're probably going to have to work through that.
Is there anybody that's kind of can step in to have those conversations and
I'm not sure who that would be right now. So I think filling that position is going to be really important in terms of creating those relationships.
Ms. Sumter, has that position been advertised as?
No, we're looking at posting for the public service director along with the economic development director. And we're trying to finalize job descriptions for both of those positions this week. So
I'm most certain hope that we really look hard at in-house with that position. I'm telling you, we got people down there that's been 20, 30 years almost, and they deserve to move up. I just hope that we really look in-house and try to fill that position. That's one position I know that can be filled in-house, but you know, we'll see. That's out of our jurisdiction.
Transportation Committee, so in this new budget, we got the whole amount for the rock, for the county paying it. Is that the way it is now?
Only what happens, we've got 25,000, which is what our portion was last year.
Right.
However, county transportation was providing us 75,000, maybe $100,000.
So this year,
we don't have anything budgeted from county transportation.
okay.
Do we have anything in the budget from the state at all? Because I know the Marlboro County, I'm really disappointed. But
What I'm saying-
Blenheim received $2.8 million. City of Bennettsville received $10 million. And we haven't got a report that what we got, Mr. Park.
One of the things that is hot on funding is water and sewer. And so those, I believe the city's $10 million, that is an upgrade to their sewer system. And Blenheim, I'm guessing that must be water supply.
I was told that Marlboro County didn't even submit a request
Right, we didn't
for any funds, and the fund was almost being given out like candy, and we didn't submit a request for any funds, and I think that's a travesty knowing the needs that we have here, and that's why, you know, it's going to be important that we stay informed as council members on these things, and so we can help guide in the direction. You know, like I said, nobody up here can do what Mr. Parks, do in finance. But I can be an ear I can be a lens, you know, as a part of my governmental responsibilities. And so we have to take more of an active role, not trying to do the day-to-day operations of the county, but making sure that we're in the know, so when things like that come down the pipe, we won't be caught by surprise. I was by surprise when somebody asked me why Marlboro County didn't submit information on money that was really just being given out. Like, here you go, you asked for something, here you go, and we didn't even submit a proposal for money that could have been really useful, especially in a year like this right here when we know what we're facing. That's unacceptable.
When we had the opportunity in February the 12th, when Mr. Munley resigned, we had the opportunity, and we failed. When we had the opportunity to bring an interim in at that time, if we would brought in, hindsight, water on the bridge, but if we would have put an interim in March, that person, him or her, would have been in the game, caught the ear of the delegation as this money would come down the pipe. But like Mr. Muller said, I'm not. If he was here, he'll say the same thing. Once you know you're leaving, your hunger is gone. And he said that. He said that I'm not gonna be as 100% dedicated to Marlboro County as I was when I was fully employed. He told us that. But we dropped the ball. We did not pursue an interim at that time because we had the false illusion that we had plenty of time, and we did not. Yeah, we cannot assume anything. When money comes at that time. We dropped the ball, but there's no need for us to worry about what we coulda, shoulda, woulda. But like I said, we finna start a new step, a new walk, and we just need to be, like Dr. Johnson said, we need to be more adhere to our task at hand. Whoever the new administrator is going to be, whoever the economic development person is going to be, whoever the public work is going to be, we need to be more engaged through and through. So we won't be caught sleeping at the gate. And if somebody walk right on by, then next thing you know, the gate, everything in the gate was gone. Because we did not, we just took it for granted where we were. And we lost a minimum $10 million, a minimum, because the delegation called me to several of them, said, why, what happened? You done it every year, then this year here when they give money out like candy, we didn't even put in a request, that because of the eye of the tiger was gone, and we had nobody watching the gate.
Going back to the transportation, now, we got nothing in the budget from them, right? But what have we got allocated for? How much?
We've got 25,000.
25,000. So they normally
Match it or something.
at least match it or more. Normally.
I think last year we got, I believe it was 75.
Okay.
But
And we've been going to get a lot of our own rock now and stuff. That's been saving the county some money too. So, I'd say let's try to cut that 25 some, because I think we can work with the transportation. Now, I really believe they've helped us all this time. I think they'll help us. And if we can cut that a little bit, because we do go get our own rock now most of the time when we can. That's saved the county a bunch of money already, like that. And we've got a lot more dirt roads done too now. I got to say it both ways. We've got a lot more dirt roads done and got a lot more for our money. So, I don't even know that. Let's just cut that whole 25 out and see what we can do with transportation to help us get this tax mill down for the people for this year. I mean, that's my opinion on it, because we've saved a bunch of money, done a lot of roads in the last 2 years, we have. And the Transportation Committee has helped us too now, and I feel like they'll continue to help us with that. And if we can save, that's a lot, that's a one good lump right there again. And I feel like they will. I mean, we've probably done more roads in the last 2 years than we did in the last 5 or 6 years. We've done that many more.
One of the things, Mr. Blackman, thank you for offering that, but one of the things with those big, whatever, love rocks they're using, I know that it's in one particular area, and I'll say over there near Troop Street, Reagan Street, those areas, they put those rocks there. And I know for a fact, when I campaigned last year, I was on those roads, and some of those people there had big holes in their tires for them sitting in their yard and couldn't get out. And they were paved, and the only reason I know, I saw it for myself. And no, I wouldn't want that in my neighborhood. I wouldn't want you to give me those big little rocks, because they're like pieces of steel. And I know it damaged a lot of those people's tires. I know that we want to try to save. I'd rather look at contracts and salaries before I take out anything for this kind of stuff. I want the community to have nice, smooth crush and run. I would like crush and runs in some of these neighborhoods. I can't say I personally, but I know that these people would like crush and run in their neighborhoods. There's too many holes we have raggedy roads. And I know that we need to be looking at trying to find all the funding we can to fix our county roads. I went to SCDOT today just to look through that program, which are our county roads and which are our state roads. Because I'm concerned about the less paving we have in our community on some of these county roads. It's terrible. Our roads look terrible. And that's why I brought that up. If crush and run is expensive, I'm sure it is. But how are we going to try to beautify some of these roads who, let's say on State Street area there, or on Union Street or MacArthur Street or Ellison Street with the big holes. Some of those roads hadn't been paved in 30 or 40 years. And if you live on that side of town and see that every day, that will disturb you. It disturbs me because my constituents tell me, Miss Lawson, Southwest Bennettsville, roads are raggedy. I know it because I'm riding on those raggedy roads. So I respect what you say, I really do, and I respect what you're saying. But I hope that we can find some way to get our county roads in where these corridors are coming out on that bypass. We need to get some of those roads paid or find monies. If it has to be, as I say, I'm ready to cut salaries before I could go with these roads.
Well, the only way you're going to do that is through the transportation committee.
Right.
The county can't do it. You see what I'm saying?
Right, I do.
So the county really, there's no way in the world can take on that responsibility. The transportation committee is going to have to help us with that.
Right.
And so that's.
So thank you.
But it's important for us to, call and make these relationships with these different boards as council members, talking to, certain people and just establishing, the relationship. Like I said, and I said it once again, this is not just a second Tuesday of the month job. We got to be better at our job. In order for us to get something that we never have, we got to do some things that we've never done before. And if we haven't been doing it, up until now, we have to start at least trying to do something different. So, weekly calls or, I'm establishing, relationship with those other people. We can't wait on our county administrator to come in and do it. We have to almost have the ground tilled so when that person comes in, they already got the relationship that's already extended through us as council members. I said I wasn't going to say nothing else, and I ain't saying nothing else till we adjourn.
Ms. Lawson, talking about the CTC, I went out to SCDOT to find out about OI Road, just see if it was on the thing, and they do have it up for it's finally up for construction phase. So after some a long time, it's finally hit there. So hopefully within a year that road would be open. So it is you do have to get out and go and just not be a one-time meeting a month. You have to do the behind the scenes to find out what it is. And that's I would ask for staff to just they know where we want to be budget wise. What kind of millage we were looking at, if it could be 5 or less. That would be,
I agree.
So we'll let them bring it back to us.
I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. I know Mrs. Doris is looking and scratching her head, and I know they've worked hard, and so, but it is our citizens, and y'all are citizens just like we are. So share everybody in this room, I think, is a citizen of Marlboro County. So if it goes up or stays the same, it affects each and every one of us in here. But we just ask you to see if you can hit that number, and y'all present something back to us, and it's up to us to vote yay or nay, or say do something different or cut. That's just, at the end of the day, it's our decision, and so we want to make a conscious decision and make sure we move forward.
We want to get the best we can for the least we can. So, like everybody else.
You can put that on the t-shirt. It's your motto.
So, Mr. Chair, question I have, who served on our Finance and Budget Committee?
On the Finance and Budget Committee from the
On the
council,
council.
me, the Vice Chair, and Councilman Stroman.
Okay. And so y'all get a chance to sit around with them before this is presented, or we just, do y'all have any meetings with that?
No, we're hearing it for the first time as you are, Mr. Austin.
But we do need to, as your point, is that we do need to be more assertive in these reports and going over to present the council. Because that is the job of a committee, is to meet, go over it, and then present to council. So we'll do a little better job. I suggest that we do a little better job.
And I would, encourage anybody to go through those account numbers and see what makes up these accounts. I mean, would that be accessible for us?
Well, I'm going to leave it here.
Okay.
Well, I'm with Mr. Blackman.
Take it up with them, that'd be great.
Mr. Blackman says 25,000 from that, and I say that 35,000 from that sign that never got put up. That's 1 meal less, isn't it?
It's getting there. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Let's do it.
That's
I know.
economic development. So
Yeah, I know it's economic development, moving around. Economic development is defunct right now, so.
Chairman?
Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, let me talk about the phones. Do every department have phones? I mean, tell me, do we not just have one phone bill? How is that? I know that the sheriff's department, because they're in a different building, will have a phone. I know that the magistrate will have a phone, but I just noticed there's a phone bill in every department.
I didn't hear, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you asked. I would be the one that knows about the phone.
Okay.
What is your question again? I'm sorry.
Do every department, like in the courthouse and the buildings, that's county buildings, do everybody have a phone bill, separate phone bill?
They do right now, but that's gonna change.
Because I noticed that's in this budget. There's separate phone bills for everybody's budget. And I'm concerned, it looks like to me we should be paying one county phone bill.
Well, we're going to charge it out by the department, so there's an allocation of that bill. So we're not going to charge phone service non-departmental. We're going to charge it to each individual department and operation.
So each department is going to be charged their portion of
Their
what their
portion
usage,
of the
even though it
overall
might be just one phone bill.
Right.
So what's the average? Because I saw $48,000
Me too.
from one department, I'm like, that's a
Send me
lot
for
for a
another
phone
one.
bill.
I mean, there's a lot of phone bills in here.
Phone and
Internet,
service.
okay, that makes sense.
The electric bill is the
It's
same
more
way,
than
right?
just, phones, it's internet service, it's, the voice setups. I mean, it's.
Comprehensive, I
You
got
get
it.
a lot for that money, believe it or not.
I got it.
See, now that's the kind of thing, as long as you answer me on questions, kind of give me an idea what it's used for, I won't have so many questions. But that's what I'm trying to say. I have questions because, for me, I like to just give me an idea of what we're spending this type money on. And those are kinds of questions I will have. I know that we've gone through this budget, but that's not, I'm not gonna let everybody think that I'm completely, don't have any more questions, because I do. I didn't spend about 3 weeks and 10 hours a day looking at this for nothing, but I do have some more, and I'll be respectful of everybody else's time. But I'm just concerned about these contractual portions in almost everybody's budget, professional development. I appreciate that, but I would like to have some better understanding of that. So thank you for allowing us to do some line by line and let us talk, and you show and let me ask you what I want to see. So I do appreciate that. But I do want, that concerns me. And so when I finish, say, well, okay, I don't have any more questions. I feel satisfied with the increase. So when I look my constituents in the face, I said, well, trust me, I combed it and I did what I needed to do, and I feel satisfied with it. And as a group, I'm ready to accept saying yes to the budget. But if I'm saying no to the budget, that's because I still have some major concerns. That's all I would say. Please, Mr. Chairman, can he have a copy of that just to look for consideration on what these figures will look like? I had 10 copies.
Did you get one of those, the copies?
Pass that extra copy.
There's some more.
And that was on the 2% portion?
Okay, I'll work with
Mr. Chairman, if we did any more business, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. We stand adjourned.